Hey everybody, welcome to Rust Belt Startup. I'm your host, Ryan Miller. If you're new here, this is my podcast. It's long conversations with artists, entrepreneurs, educators, people living unconventional lives in unconventional locations. I'm glad you're here, whether you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify. I put the video on Spotify as well. Or you're listening when you're driving or doing your laundry. I'm glad that you're building something. I'm glad that you're here. And thanks for giving me a piece of your day, you know. Let's talk about today's conversation. This is one that I have been wanting to have legit for like a year and change, and we just haven't been able to make it happen. But today I'm sitting down with Justin Call, who's the CEO of Modovolo. Modovolo is an upstate New York-based company building advanced modular drone tech for real-world applications. I want to first encourage you, if you get a chance, I'll put it in the show notes. Go to modovolo.com so you can actually see what they're building. It's pretty impressive. But this conversation, it's not just about drones. It's about what actually you need to do to build a hardware company from the ground up. And I mean the ground up. Like, they even decided to make the machines that make the machines. It's crazy. And I have been really fortunate to be one of the first people to ever see the original prototype and have had this front row seat of their whole journey for the last, I think it's been like 5 years. So finally got Justin to come into the studio and have him sit down to share the journey behind Modovolo, how they make decisions about what are they going to focus on from a product perspective, who are they serving, like how are they really getting laser focused on customers, and manufacturing, like how hard is it to actually make something. And we talk about why building something useful and durable mattered more to them than chasing buzz or like launching too early. This is really a conversation about the realities of entrepreneurship that don't always make it into, pitch decks, social media posts, or TV shows. Everybody thinks this is easy. Entrepreneurship is so hard. They're talking about iterating in public, failing in public, learning from those missteps, and staying super disciplined about what you build and who you're building it for. And honestly, like the long timelines that come with building a technology or a physical product, this is not something you just turn the key on and ship it. Like this is a years long process to get here. And building physical products, or really anything worthwhile for that matter, it takes a lot of time. It takes testing and a willingness to learn from what doesn't work. And I love that Justin is just so refreshingly honest about how that process unfolded. So if you're an entrepreneur, a founder thinking about hardware or advanced tech or manufacturing, or someone trying to build a serious company in a place like Upstate New York, this is an episode that's going to offer practical lessons about patience, focus, and doing the work when nobody's watching. Let's just start at the beginning. First of all, I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for like a year. I think we've been talking about this for about a year.
It's been a while.
Kind of glad we waited.
Yeah.
Because now you're kind of in liftoff mode with Modovolo. So let's...
Good pun.
Oh yeah. Didn't even think about that.
On many levels.
Didn't even think about that. Let's start a little bit pre-Modovolo though, because I knew you, and I can't remember the amount of startups that you've swung at, but there's been 3 or 4. There's been... and I can't remember all the names, but there was I Do Local,
yeah,
which evolved into...
That was my wife's, but...
Okay. You're still involved with that. You were still involved with that.
We did find a developer who was into the idea, and it's evolved quite a bit. So she's kind of still managing that.
Okay.
But that thing has risen and failed probably like 10 times.
Okay. So there's I Do Local.
Yeah.
And then
Although now it's called Get Together With, but
there was one in between too that was like the Genie, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been renamed and rehashed.
So there was that. There was Go Figure you were involved with.
Yeah.
Which was a AI augmented measurement startup for the construction industry.
Yeah.
And that again rose, and you sold it.
Sold-ish. Yeah, the assets were sold.
Yeah. I would call that a win.
The investors would not.
Okay.
But that one was majority owned by a construction firm, and they were very nice people. But that would have been a very successful company had not the construction firm kind of gotten in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So they had construction firm kind of view of the world, which they were very successful. But they wouldn't allow it to grow in a way that made sense. So,
and you had different models. So, I mean, it was a cool idea. It was a cool idea. So
yeah, the product really did well. I mean, we had several thousand subscribers, and it was really gaining traction. But there was they did not want to lose control of the company if we raised, like, the parties that we brought in to raise money wanted to have seats at the table, and that construction firm was not going to let that happen. Mm-hmm. So
you got out of that. There was
yes.
There was also the what was the data lake? What is or was the data lake company? So you were doing a big data project startup as well, right?
Yeah.
And so we're on like startup number 5 or 6 or beyond.
Well, it goes beyond that because I've been an executive with other startups, not founder, and those ones have been insanely successful. So I don't know what that speaks of me, but TravelClick and Alice were both startups that I joined as an executive, and we had amazing exits. So, yeah.
And so now so I've kind of been with you on some of those journeys up and down, and now what we're really kind of talking about today is Modovolo. But I think before we jump into Modovolo, I want to ask you one more question about kind of that startup journey. Is you seem to be very comfortable with just like starting something new, and then it also seems like, and pull me back on this, that you also know when to quit, when to get out, when to pivot. And if you feel like that's an accurate statement, how do you start flexing that muscle? Or how do you develop that?
I think I'm probably too comfortable with failure.
Okay.
I kind of enjoy the act of failing in something because it's usually a much more interesting lesson
than succeeding.
Go on. Okay.
Go on.
I will go on. So Alice is an interesting example of, and Go Figure, are both interesting examples of companies that could have been just way more successful. And same with TravelClick. And just to back up for 1 second, like TravelClick was an exceptional data play in the travel space. And we had pretty good venture capital owners and then a really bad private equity owner who basically like ended all development. And it could have been, I mean, the company sold for $1.5 billion, not too shabby. But if we had been enabled to build something great, it was good, but it wasn't great. And Alice was the same way, but that was even worse. You had a very large strategic company, Expedia was the majority shareholder, and they got in the way all the time. And so again, like something that could have been just amazing was kind of died on the, it's still a great exit, but could have been a great company. And Go Figure is kind of in that vein where you've got a financier who thinks they know more than the executive team, and they butt in and make decisions that don't make sense. So the lesson that I've learned from those kind of like failures, I don't know how, anyone looking at $1.5 billion exit doesn't consider that failure, but it was a failure from the point of view of, again, like the greatness of the company, the greatness of the products. They were good, not great. They could have been great. The lessons that I've learned from that are that you need to have control over your business, because if you have the vision and you understand the product and the space, then you need to execute on that. So you need to find people who are willing to invest, but not control.
That seems like it's difficult.
It is, because if you're writing a big check, it's not like a crazy thing to say, like, I want a seat at the table. I want to be able to veto and like have some decision rights. And so it's not an irrational expectation.
Just not
but
right.
I won't do that anymore.
When you're looking at, you're calling them failures, but you also said, well, they were $1 billion exits. But I feel like you also are okay. You seem to have a sense it's like, well, I get to get another swing at the pitch. Where I think one of the challenges here, and a lot of the folks that I kind of work with is there's I don't want to say we don't celebrate failure, but like it's hard to go leave a job or a career to go do a business or startup, and if it fails, it's hard to land again somewhere. But you don't, and I shouldn't say you don't have that concern, but you seem to be more comfortable with that kind of risk tolerance and just knowing, well, I'm going to get another at bat somewhere, somehow.
Is it okay to pitch Dave Ramsey at this point?
Totally.
I think one of the reasons why it's easier is that for me, I think my wife might disagree with this, but we didn't really know about Dave Ramsey before we started doing this, but my wife's father made a big bet in the late 80s on condos and lost his shirt. So she went from being very wealthy to being like
not very wealthy.
Not very wealthy. And so we've been fiscally conservative for a long time.
Yeah.
And so when you eliminate debt from your life, you then all of a sudden have a ton of flexibility.
Yeah.
So I think that would be one thing that, if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you can't be beholden to a massive mortgage and car payments and credit cards and stuff like that. So I think in order to like make you less anxious around failing in a startup, that's what gives me a lot of confidence, because it's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, if I wake up tomorrow and I'm unemployed, I'm not losing my house. Right.
You've controlled your burn rather than your the income.
Yeah. And so, I mean, part of it is a little bit.
But to follow up on that, how do you? That's long-term. That's a long-term play, right? Because at some point you got to be like, well, I might have this opportunity for a business now, but it's going to take me 5 years to get out of debt, 10 years out of debt. There's got to be some kind of a balance. Or did you guys go like hard at the debt because of that experience, and then it was a big unlock for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think I wasn't intending on. That was an outcome. It wasn't the intent. It was, my wife being very conservative and not wanting to go through that experience again.
Yeah.
And seeing the outcome from that.
Yeah.
So, if he had succeeded, it would have been great, but
he bet it all.
Yeah. And lost.
So I guess let's shift towards Modovolo, because this is a very, very interesting journey that I've watched you guys go on, where I remember you talking to me about this top secret project probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, you were the first one.
I remember hearing about it and going, well, this is a great idea.
Yeah.
And how the hell are you going to build this or do this or get people to invest in it, or how do you build something that flies? So for people that don't know who you are, how would you describe Modovolo as a company and the first product?
So my co-founder is the brains of this. So Orion is a very brilliant aerospace engineer. He's a retired Air Force captain, C-130 pilot, cybersecurity expert, savant. And he's also exceptional in that most engineers will look at a problem and they'll try to optimize the thing instead of actually thinking about it from a first principle standpoint. So when Orion approached me about doing this, that was the first thing that I noticed about his thinking patterns. That if you look at every other drone on the planet, they all look the same.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of perform the same. And that's not really appealing from a startup standpoint. Like if you can't exceed what's out there by a very comfortable margin, then
Why do it?
Yeah, why do it? So again, his first principles thinking and was really around his experiences with. He's also a commercial drone pilot, so
Okay.
he was working at a local company. He saw lots of different drones coming in and out, and his basic conclusion was they're way too expensive. They can't fly for very long. They can't hold any payload, and they don't have a good performance envelope.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still charging like $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the genesis of it. Can we build a drone that has way more performance than anything that's out there, but also radically reduce the cost? And so we spent a long time in his garage iterating on that concept. Like how do we change the paradigm? And that meant thinking about like things like, well, okay, in order for a drone to fly long, it needs to be lighter. It needs to be way more efficient. And so if you ask those questions and discard what everyone else is doing, you kind of come up with these like premises of things like Orion designing our propellers and our propulsion systems to spin at a very low speed. And so you may be thinking, well, that seems really freaking obvious. And you may be right, but no one else was thinking that. Still don't think that. They have propellers that are spinning at 10,000 RPMs, and we're spinning at 1,500 RPMs. So he developed his own like genetic algorithm software program so that we have very different blade designs. They're very thick corded. They're spinning at a low speed. They're producing a ton of thrust. But that also means that you're drawing not that much current.
Mm-hmm.
So you get this massive performance boost just by thinking through how to be efficient.
And by extension, getting more bang for your buck on whatever battery you put in. Right?
It's an interesting, yes, but it's also an interesting dynamic there as well because we're drawing so little current. You can use batteries that no one else can use because everyone else needs a very high discharge rate battery. We don't need that. So that means we can use batteries with different chemistries that have much longer much higher milliamp hours, but they can't discharge.
They don't need to discharge that.
We don't need, right? We don't need a high discharge rate. So we can use very different batteries than our competitors can.
And, the concept that I remember seeing in the garage started with this idea of the bicycle tire.
Yeah.
And wondering if you could kind of talk about it's hard to describe it without seeing it, but maybe I could throw something up on the screen for folks on the YouTube. But it was just, I've never seen anything like it ever.
Yeah.
And where did he come up with that? And then it's one thing to look at that, and it's another thing to go, well, we can build this.
I don't know. I just remember walking into the garage one day and he had built it, and I kind of said the same thing. Like, WTF is that? And but it's an insanely efficient design because you're relying on tension. Again, to your point, it looks like a bicycle wheel, but obviously bicycle wheels, there's a difference in that the spindles are pushing out. The spindles in R are in tension. There's a little bit of difference there. Orion could do a much better job. It would take about a half an hour for him to explain it. But so people who are engineers listening are going to wildly complain about my explanation of it, which is fair. But yeah, the idea was to radically simplify the design and create something that was incredibly rigid and more like a bridge than a bicycle tire, as Orion would explain it. But it gave us a ton of rigidity. And it was a great starting point. in the current design, if you go to the website, we did abandon that, not because it wasn't a great design. It's an amazing design. But there are two different paths that we were going at the same time as we were developing. One path was, how do we build a drone? How do we design a drone that is incredibly lightweight, high performance, but low cost? But we realized that that's only half of the equation. You need to think about how you're going to build it at the same time. And so that duality, I think, is what really sets us apart, because we ended up designing and building our own production equipment.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, what do you mean by production equipment? I remember you're like, we're gonna build the we're gonna build the 3D printers, and we're gonna print these drones.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say we're gonna build the drone, but now you're gonna get into, like, you gotta now have a manufacturing skill set, and you're gonna build the parts. And I remember coming over to the garage, and I was like, you built a 3D printer that prints a flyable drone.
Yeah.
It's bananas.
It is. Again, this is Orion's genius on these things, not mine. But we ended up buying a lot of different 3D printers, so it was an expensive lesson.
Yeah.
But what we found was that they were all very terrible. Like they couldn't print a high quality plastic product. Even ones that were six figures were terrible. And they were slow. So you could see why lots of companies don't use them for production.
Mm-hmm.
So that required a ton of development. Like, we had to figure out, how can you print something, because the interlayer adhesion between each print makes most 3D printed plastics very weak. So there's a lot of science and math around how you figure out the right material, the right print speed,
the fill,
right?
Yeah,
all of that is very difficult. And we wanted a 3D printer that was large format, so we could print massive parts very quickly, like orders of magnitude faster than anything that's out there, but also, again, at a very low cost, like an order of magnitude less than a comparable printer.
Mm-hmm.
But we're better. And so we are a 3D printing company. We are a propeller company. We are an electronics company. There's pretty much nothing in the stack that we haven't developed.
Yeah. It's a very Apple approach to this.
It's funny you should say that, because, like, we're really more like Dell in our kind of philosophy than Apple. Because Dell, Honda is probably a better example. And we took a lot of inspiration from Soichiro Honda, the founder. We were effing around with these 3D printers, and we did, Orion and I like to read books together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so we read, like, Good to Great, and The Toyota Way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them that we were reading together was Driving Honda. And that one talked about the founding of Honda, and especially Soichiro Honda himself, the founder and CEO. Total badass. The guy was just brilliant and just completely unafraid. But he decides to get into he started as a motorcycle company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he decides that he's going to get into the car business. And so he goes over to America and tries to buy stamping machines and other equipment in America, and they're all way too expensive. So he comes back and he tells his engineers, "You're going to build this stuff." And that was a pivotal moment for us. We're like, well, why aren't we doing that? Like, if he could pull that off, we need to pull this off. And so that really kind of changed our thinking about, like, really owning that process.
Okay, but there's a gap between seeing something that is impossible and seeing something that is hard.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we look at things and say that's impossible, but in actuality, it's just hard.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Right. And then there's a whole other part of what you have to be able to do to like I don't know, in your mind go, this is hard and we can get there. It's just going to be hard.
Some of it is ignorance though.
Sure. I guess that, so do you need the right mix, right?
So like on the propeller front, we designed our own 3D printed propeller, which did not dawn on any of us that this was like, it's been really hard to do it. Again, because the interlayer adhesion problem. So how do you develop something that's spinning at the speed of sound at the tip, not disintegrate? So we've done it. There's still some kinks left to be worked out, but I put together a provisional patent for it with our patent attorney, and because he came to us and said, hey, no one else is patenting anything here. I couldn't find anything. So I did my own research, and everything says you can't build a 3D printed propeller. And I'm like, wow, I'm really glad we didn't find this up in these articles at the beginning. Yeah. So I think there's a lot like that where, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud. There are a lot of guys on our team that are in their early 20s and they don't know that you can't do things.
I think that's awesome. I've met some of them. I'm like, yeah, they're very confident individuals.
Yeah, because they've overcome incredible challenges. I mean, drones look simple, but you're trying to build something at incredibly low cost and dealing with physics and aerodynamics. And there's a benefit in being like a Boeing engineer where you have like unlimited resources and you don't have to worry about the cost component because you're trying to build a $300 million machine. Right. You're not gonna skimp. Where it becomes a super challenge is when you're trying to hit incredibly high performance envelopes. And my engineers do not like it when I say this, and I repeat, like I'm always on them. You have to be pathologically focused on cogs at the same time. Yeah. Like you're not looking at each independently.
Yeah. Cogs is cost of goods sold.
Oh yeah. Like how much does it cost you to actually build this?
You're trying to build a Ferrari for the cost of a Toyota.
Yeah. Like how do you get to a Ferrari performance level? But that's a good one. Yeah. Toyota.
The other thing about Modovolo's drone that I thought was really interesting on the, at the very beginning, and then you're still kind of keeping it's still on the roadmap, is this idea that it's modular, where you can carry things, and then you kind of have this idea of the quad, the hex, and the oct, right?
Yeah.
And I know you're starting with the quad, but can you talk about the importance? Because you're trying to, I feel like you're adding all of these things to the mix. You're like, oh, it's got to be the performance of a Ferrari for the cost of a Toyota. Oh, and it must be like Legos as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like you keep introducing complexity, but I think that also drives you to like this incredible uniqueness of what you're trying to do.
Well, what is really crazy is that our I'm going to shamelessly plug our chief design officer and embarrass him. His name's Gabor. He's a very legendary designer. So the iRobot, he designed that. The I forgot the name of the company, but like the device that the waiter comes over to swipe you out. I think it's Clover. I think that's he designed that.
Clover.
I'm the A380 interior.
I don't know what that is.
The super jumbo jet interior. Yeah. So he's done some really crazy shit.
Okay.
So what's very interesting about, and this kind of goes to our ability to manufacture and design and execute all in one company. You were talking about complexity.
Yeah.
It's really easy to be complex. So like a drone like our quad drone competes with drones that are way more expensive, but also from a part count perspective, we only have 118 parts, including the screws. A DJI Matrice 300, which we're benchmarking with, we beat them on performance metrics, but That's a Chinese drone. That's like 2,000 parts. So we've in the pursuit of high performance, if you can eliminate parts, you eliminate weight, you also increase your quality, and it enables you to do things like Legos.
Yeah,
because there's no, like, if it's super complex, like, yes, there are smart Legos, but you can't, like, to have an airframe that can change shape is very difficult if you let complexity seep in.
One of the, I realized I'm not describing what I mean by the quad hex and the oct, where I'm trying to describe this where you can't see it, but we're all familiar with the quad.
Yeah.
Four props and a body.
Yeah.
And most of them don't lift anything, right? But you've now got this design. You can go to Modovolo.com to see it, where you've got this like payload compartment. You can put stuff in it and it goes. But then
that's its own innovation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like interchangeable.
Well, every other drone on the planet has a fixed center where all the
stuff is. Yeah.
All the stuff is, and then you have to like milk it like a cow.
Yeah. To
put like any sort of payload underneath, like attach it underneath. What Gabor and Jackson and the product team came up with is, well, like, that's logistically a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And it's also limiting to the amount of payload capacity.
Or the kinds of payload that you can do.
Payload. So the design they came up with is dropping it, like, getting rid of the center and creating negative space. Mm-hmm. So that the drone is literally designed around the payload bay. Yeah,
the brains and everything are the props, are the propellers to a certain extent.
Oh, that's the other cool thing that they did. Well, to just finish up that one thought is you're dropping in the payload module from the top.
Yeah.
And of course you can drop from below, but like it's a no-brainer. You just drop in, the power's right there.
Yep.
Clip, and you're off to the races, and it's a massive area. It's like 3 or 4 times larger than
anything else.
Then the other thing that Jackson, Gabor, and the team came up with is that same problem of having a fixed center with all your electronics means that, like, if there's an upgrade in electronics, that means the end consumer has to buy another drone, which is great for the drone company, not so great for the consumer. So there's a separate control box on our drone that if you want to do like long distance flights, well, you buy one control box that has RTK capabilities, redundant GPS, all this stuff to make it super safe. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you could buy like incredibly cheap electronics if you're the government and you want to turn it into a one-way attack.
A one-way drone,
kamikaze drone. So, like, even before getting to the idea that you could convert this into a hex VTOL or an octo, which is still very much in development, just to point that out. But there's this insane flexibility that the product team has built in across every single element, from the avionics to the payload to the batteries to the type of propellers.
Yeah, the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Which makes me want to ask you about the idea around persistence and patience, because you've been working on this, and the team. I don't mean just you. I mean the team, but you're the one that's here. So and we've been talking about this for like 5 years, and to have the patience to stick with this for so long, I think is. It really, we're so used to, I mean, I meet a lot of people like, I need to launch this business tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And,
I would like that too.
Well, but did you have that time horizon in mind where it's like, this is going to take us like 5 years before we kind of get to V2 and customers and all that? Or were you like, hey, this is going to be an 18-month project and we're going to be out the door?
Well, I think this goes to, I mentioned earlier, I'm probably too comfortable with failure. And that helps a lot with aerospace because the things crash a lot.
Sure.
That can be very demoralizing because
then you don't want things to crash.
You have to start all over again.
Break.
things break. So you have, like, in my mind, and I tell people this when we hire them, like, if you're here for the money, you're going to have a really hard time with this because there's a ton of failure. There's more valleys than peaks. And so if you don't enjoy the process of creating and failing, it's just a slog.
Yeah.
And so so you just have to be really upfront with yourself about that metric.
And not everybody wants to accept that.
I think they would if they just let it happen and realize it's actually really useful.
I mean, I think it sure can be, but there's this other dynamic at work, which is, you guys are building something that's high tech, hard, and frankly, you're doing it in Clinton and Vernon, New York.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, not exactly the home for, high tech manufacturing, but there's a certain point where, you go from garage where y'all are kind of 3D printing the stuff, where you need to start thinking about how do we fund this thing? There is a point where you're like, okay, there's got to be, I don't know if there was a moment that you can remember or if it's always been this way where you said, we have something here that will attract investment, or did you have to get to a point to prove it that you had something there?
So one inflection point was when we did, I wish we had videoed it, but we did like a 2-hour, 40-minute flight.
You have it on video.
That was a 2-hour flight.
Oh, okay.
So we've got it. When we did that, and that was like Orion saying that, hey, I've got like these upgrades that I want to do, and then let's do it. We had not even come close to hitting that level of flight time before that. And
to be clear, that's keeping it up in the air without coming down, without charging a battery.
Yeah.
Which, if you've never flown a drone, it's usually like 30 to 40 minute flight time.
Yeah.
If that.
So then I at that point, I'm like, Orion and I had thrown a lot of money at this. And that point, I knew we had something very special. And then the following spring/summer, I think you'll recall, we launched our website just to see if people were interested in it, because, and that's hard to do, like, because nothing was ready.
Yeah, you weren't going to ship for months or a year, time. Right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't really have a, like, we had a very advanced prototype.
Sure.
So that was a good bet and a good risk because it turned out that people were really excited about it. And so we had, defense contractors reaching out to us and lots of interest. So
were you promoting really hard at the time, or were you like, website's up, we're gonna do some social media? It's one thing to build a product, it's another thing to get people to see it and get interested in it.
Yeah, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. So
can you talk about some of the things you did?
I reached out to lots of different publications and just asked them if they were interested. Most of them said get bent. Some of them said pay us, and others said that's very interesting, tell me more. And so we were able to get decent exposure from a few different publications. We started a YouTube channel and just sent it to people that we knew in the local area, and they send it to other people because it was a cool video. I mean, that one was a 2-hour flight inside, and so that came out really well. Yeah. And then we got interest from AIS, amazing company, amazing people, and so that really kind of.
And they approached you and said, "Hey, we'd like to, like, how does that work? Where someone does, is it always? Are you always pitching for? Is there a situation where you're now starting to get interest from investors where they're like, hey, we'd like to write you a check?
I think this is where a lot of early entrepreneurs kind of miss how to do that. At least from my perspective. I like to take people on the journey. So like, I knew that at a certain point that I wanted to stop writing checks for it. Yeah. And so that meant like, if I was going to raise money in 2024, 2025, I need to start in 2023. So, meeting with high net worth individuals and just telling them what I was doing. And like Chuck Green from AIS, he and I met, he came over to the garage. He got to, see what we were doing on a monthly basis. And then, he saw that we had, a really amazing team, a really amazing roadmap and process. And so, and he was a great advisor too. So like, he was able to guide us in several different directions.
So to start that, I mean, you didn't go ask for money. You don't ask for money the first time you meet someone.
Yeah. And that's not like, and I say high net worth individuals, but like at the end of the day, like I was looking for advice and feedback. And so then you see who's interested and who's not. And then the conversations can just evolve from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's, how do you get it requires a lot of patience.
How do you get comfortable reaching out to folks for that? I mean, I know it's for advice, but it's still uncomfortable. Has to be uncomfortable. Or maybe it's not. I don't know.
I think if you view it as I'm looking to get advice from this person and they're really smart, we're very blessed with investors who are really smart and engaged in tech.
Yeah.
So I think if you obviously if you have like a fashion brand and you're going to talk with someone who's a physicist, probably not going to be a good mix.
Right.
But if you're an aerospace company talking with a physicist, that's a different story. So they self-select, like, it's it becomes a point where they're starting to ask you, like, how are you, like, where's
the money coming from?
Well, yeah. Well, what's the next plateau? And like, And so, it just becomes a much easier discussion because you've been talking with them and they've been guiding you for the last 2 or 3 years.
What I'm hearing you say is like, hey, it comes down to relationships.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. And that kind of goes to a point that I made a lot earlier around getting the right people invested in you and your team and your vision. Yeah. And so if they've seen the progression of it and they're like, okay, wow, that's kind of cool. I want to be part of that. They start asking you to invest.
Yeah. Well, there's trust. You've built trust. You've built all the things that one needs for a relationship, right?
But finding those people like Chuck Green who are like very visionary, like they get it like way before other people get it.
I hope Chuck listens to this because I want to hit him up to hear his journey and get him in here.
You should definitely do that. Yeah,
he's on the hit list.
Yeah, I name drop him all the time.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy.
Agree. Yeah.
One of the things that I was very grateful to be a part of was you did these demo days. That I think was like, this was like opening up the curtain and seeing what we've been building. And I remember I've been to 2 or 3 of them now.
Yeah.
And now as you're saying this, kind of the method for attracting investors and interest, it's like now it makes sense because, and not that it didn't make sense before, but when you go to one, I was like, wow, it was like, will this thing fly? Right? That was demo day number 1. Will the thing fly? And it flew. And
just barely.
It did. And it was, and it was as, it was, here's some Dunkin' and some right? And the place is kind of, it was a humble barn, right? You're doing the HP garage.
We're in the same barn.
But here's the thing, then it's like, I don't know, was it 6 months later, I come back, or 8 months later, it's like demo day 2, and it was a little bit better. And then I come back in this fall. Yeah. Demo day 3, and it's like, hey, by the way, we have a command center now, and now there's like 75 people there, and you showed us not only that it flies, but you were showing how you could put seed distribution in there, and they're dropping seeds, and then you were jamming Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that act of demoing not only shows how cool it is, but holy crap, the progression. You can see that growth over a period of a year. And was that part of the plan? You're just like, we just got to get people to see this.
Oh yeah.
Because to me, it shows that you are a very serious company when you're going and making these giant orders of magnitude leaps.
But that's also something that, in our getting the team to buy into that, like, it's very uncomfortable to put that out there and have people criticize it. So like, as engineers with their baby, it's not something they...
Well, why'd people criticize it? I mean, you're inviting them to participate in something cool.
Oh yeah, but you're there's a big chance that it'll fail.
Sure.
So I think that that was intentional to see interest and get feedback, especially like the first couple were mostly just engineers who usually don't have a lot of problems pulling punches. So you get some pretty aggressive feedback, which is what you want, that loop. And also to build relationships with people, because it's not just us. We have an amazing community in that there's a ton of talent that's everywhere. And we've been very fortunate to hire out of that, but we also have been very fortunate to have advisors who are just there and understand their value is around telling us the truth and not sugarcoating it. Because a lot of people will look at something and say, "Oh yeah, that's great," and that's the worst thing you can do to an entrepreneur, is just not direct
kick the tires.
Yeah. So the demo days, I think, and we have had like mini demo days that have not been kind of publicized that are kind of the same thing.
Can you speak to some of the challenges or maybe advantages in trying to do this in upstate New York?
Well, we have more cows than people as neighbors. So we can walk right out of the back of our garage and fly anytime we want. And we're always flying. So that's a huge advantage. Just we're in G-rated airspace and we can do whatever we want. Can't go over 400 feet, but other than that, we can do whatever we want. So that's a huge advantage. Real estate cost, huge advantage. But where we have another advantage that is kind of unsung, as far as I'm concerned, is just an enormous human capital advantage. So we have lots of very young people on the team who have engineering degrees, have business major degrees, anything you can think of, and they're uber talented. And so we can do things on par with companies that are based in,
How'd you attract them?
That's the other reason to do all that relationship building, because all of a sudden you've developed a network where you talk with a few people and say, "Hey, we're looking for it, this kind of person," and they're like, "Oh yeah, you should talk with this person." Talk with this person. Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's not a lot of formal job interview casting calls at Modovolo. It's you got to talk to this person.
Not yet. I'm sure as we evolve, we'll have to do something like that.
Yeah.
But I think we'll be able to get pretty far without doing that. This is a little bit maybe of a different vein, but one of my pet peeves that I've seen previously is, I know you've seen this too, so is there's a lot. How do you prevent your idea or your company from getting sucked out of upstate New York and saying, well, you got, I see that all, like, people get to a certain point, they're like, great, yoink, we're now going to take you to San Francisco or New York. And I feel like it's so, what you guys are doing is I feel like it's precious and fragile. And how do you keep it here? Well, that goes to your finance strategy. So if you, and those, I'm not criticizing like density. I think
Yeah, no, I wasn't pulling them out.
Brilliant company,
yeah, sure.
brilliant guys. But when you choose to get money from like a venture capital firm, then you're losing control of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to my
your experience,
talk,
right?
Yeah, about how finance guys are very smart, but they have like metrics that they're trying to hit.
Sure.
And they have to pay their limited partners who are their investors. So you just have to understand their incentives. So their incentives are not to build a 50-year plus company.
Right.
They have to flip the company.
Yep.
So that means that they're driven to do things like, well, this company needs to like build all these features. Like I've got a team in Palo Alto,
mm-hmm.
and we know how to do this shit in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So,
and some of the acquirers might be in the valley, right? You're going to IPO or you're going to get acquired.
Exactly. So
that's the strategy.
Yeah. So it's just that playbook makes sense to do that under that playbook, and it doesn't make sense if you're a VC based in San Francisco to have a Syracuse based startup. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So Orion and I made the decision very early on that we were going to be very disciplined financially, and we were going to be very disciplined on the kind of people who were going to be investors. And so far, we've been able to execute on that. So that gives us the discretion to say, like, we're here.
Yeah. And say no.
And yeah, we're not moving. And we think it's a massive strategic advantage to be here. Yeah. So, I was talking with a potential investor this morning, and she was talking about how she didn't invest in another drone startup. And I asked her to explain that. And their burn rate was just through the roof. Like they were going through like $10 to $15 million a year.
Wow.
And they were based in San Francisco, like hugely expensive rent,
expensive human capital,
and of course they're can criticize their product's development pathway, but we can do things here for a fraction of the cost. And I think that's the game. Like drones are really a commodity at the end of the day. So you need, in any commodity, you need to figure out how you're going to radically reduce your costs, but also find ways to differentiate and provide value at the same time, which kind of goes to our performance to cost principle.
You're building. At some point, you got to ship this thing. At some point, you got to find someone to pay you.
Yeah.
To buy.
We're shipping
a ton of them.
Yeah, we're shipping like hopefully early next week. Our first.
Get out of here.
Oh yeah.
Our first customers, partners. Is it direct to consumer? Is it military, or can you say?
Oh yeah. So this kind of goes to the Genius New York ecosystem.
Yeah.
So we have customers that are fellow Genius New York portfolio members. So I think that's also an unsung, massively successful program.
Yeah.
And so the Genius ecosystem is a natural customer base for us. And another natural customer base are defense contractors that are in the area.
Rome area, yeah.
So shout out to Andro and Andy Droz.
Yep.
They are a customer and also a partner. So we're developing payloads with them. And then AIS, of course, is going to take delivery of our printer and a few drones. So we've got a lot of pipeline there. And then if you've seen anything in the news about the drone dominance program and our need to catch up with our adversaries in drone tech, there are a lot of RFPs out there, and we are applying to all of them.
That's awesome.
None of those have landed, though. I guess that's a pun.
Yeah, but those aren't. I got to imagine that those are pretty big tickets if you get in on it. So
Yeah.
What does it feel like to finally get towards taking delivery of or throwing things to people now? Because now you've got a whole other set of challenges. We built it.
Yeah.
Now you got to
Then you have to
service
support it.
right?
Yeah.
How are you preparing for that, or are you just like, get them out the door, we'll figure it out?
A little bit of both. So there's a lot of planning that goes into to productizing it, and so the initial customers they know they're receiving something that is like 97% ready, but we're saying, hey, we're going to ship you new propellers. We're going to ship you these new things as we develop them. You're just going to give us feedback, and we're going to give you a better price on it. So there's a lot of methodology and thinking behind that, but there's also pushing something out that you know that's not quite there.
But isn't that how you're supposed to do it in kind of startup mentality? Is like, who was it? Reed Hoffman or Hastings? One of the Reeds was like, if you're not embarrassed by the first thing you shipped, you've waited too long.
Yeah, I think we have probably waited too long. But so it's always clear in retrospect that that's the case. Looking forward, it's hard to know where to snap the line. So again, I'm more comfortable with risk and pushing it out there. My team likes to fight me on this all the time, which is good. We have lots of healthy conflict. That's one of the conflict points, is when and what are we shipping? And so a lot of that, it is like a negotiation on like being transparent with the customer and what we're delivering, what we're not delivering, and also creating a paradigm where you're kind of de-risking it for the customer. So for instance, with there's a government customer, I can't tell you which, where they want to buy our production cell, and that was intentional.
The whole stack.
That's a product, like buying our equipment, getting a license to build our drone. Yeah. So that's really what will be our main product line. And so we are saying, hey, we are going to take delivery of this production equipment. It's a series 1. There's shit that's wrong with it. Here are the things that it's not good at, but you're going to get incredible support. And we are going to, when we get version 2 out, we are going to take version 1 away, give you version 2.
That's awesome.
So they're just ways that you can de-risk it for the customer. But the cool thing is that many customers that are early adopter types are completely unfazed by that. So you can't sell to
the middle of the curve.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, exactly. You can't sell to like a corporate client that has defined metrics around how they buy things, because they're just not. They're waiting for something that's a very mature product that they just turn the key.
Yep.
So that's the wrong customer for your first year or two.
Are you having fun?
Yeah, we have an insanely awesome team. We probably have a little too much fun. The weeks are very long.
Yeah.
Very long. Most of the team are working 70 plus hours a week.
I want to be respectful of your time. I know you are also have a law background, and so I don't want you to bill me by the hour. Or by the minute.
Yeah.
And so where can people learn more about Modovolo? I mean, I know it's Modovolo.com. You've got a great YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That the place to go?
Yeah, those are both great places to go.
Awesome. I'm trying to think of I have so many more things I want to talk to you about, and potentially maybe we could do this again at some point, but this is what you're building is really incredible. I've never seen anything like it in my career here working with entrepreneurs in Upstate. I've never seen anything like it. And so, we joke here. I have a lot of conversations with other folks kind of in the ecosystem where it's like, at some point, I love building from the bottom up. That's still like my passion. I love micro enterprise. I love helping people build culture. But I always come back to like, this area needs a big win. We need a big win that we can go like, this thing was built here. And since I saw it fly, I'm like, you guys could be the big win. You could be. And I hope that you are.
One of the things that has been really important to me and Orion is the idea of diffusion. And so one of the reasons why we developed our own production cell is that we also want to be in the business of Rust Belt entrepreneuring.
Yeah.
And in the Goldilocks ideal state, we are spawning companies that become Modovolo companies. So they buy into our production cell, they get a license, and they are building a drone company in their garage.
Yeah.
And building out from there. And so, in a way, we want to be purposefully small because I've worked at large companies. They have a lot of there's a lot of coordination costs and bureaucracy that you need to have that I just hate. So part of our thinking is to not be in ourselves, not be a massive company, but the network becomes massive. And I think that would be the big win. Like if we have 20 Modovolo companies in upstate New York, and they're specializing in particular payloads. They're going after particular markets. We create this like innovation ecosystem where we can innovate very quickly because we've got the right production cell capabilities. We've got the right like agile development processes. That would be pretty awesome.
I hope you have the patience to do it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I will. I'll let you go, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
man. This was great.
Fun. Thank you so much for having me.
It was great, man. I want to thank Justin for coming in. It's such a treat to get to. We haven't had a chance to like unpack this journey before in such an in-depth way. So I'm really thankful for Justin for coming in, and shout out to all of the Modovolo team. Great bunch of people building some really cool stuff here in upstate New York. Thank you for giving me a front row seat to the journey. And if you want to learn more about Modovolo, make sure you visit their website, modovolo.com. They got a great YouTube channel as well. And I think that's it for today. So good luck. Stay safe out there. Take care of your neighbors. Build something important, and I'll see you next time.